By the time I finish the video, the trailer for Season 7 has already come out. However, someone who I will let remain anonymous uploaded his own analysis of the trailer, and so I cut up the speaking parts and reformed it into a coherent trailer. So this is what you're gonna get for an early analysis. Let's begin, shall we? We start off the season with the Steam ban. Yes, I'm surprised Victor had the balls to do this too, but here we are. This episode is probably going to start the process of non-faceless Steam vehicles being removed from the railway, and thus leading into later episodes, such as episodes 8, 9, and 10. As such, this will most likely be an overarching plotline throughout Season 7, unlikely to play a role in the latter half of the season. But again, I am getting ahead of myself. Our second episode shows us Whiff in the workshop, most likely sick from something, and I predict that there are going to be two possibilities for the outcome of this episode. Technically three, but one is a subsidiary of the second. One is the most obvious, being that Victor is going to kill off Whiff, based off of the fact that he might be in the back of the shed, and given what Adam went through in Season 4, it's not a huge stretch to say that Whiff could eventually come down with metal fatigue, and due to the railway banning Steam, BR most likely won't compensate the railway for parts or cost, thus leaving Whiff in limbo until he chooses the final firing. Option 2 is that everything ends up okay in the end. Now, I don't have much to say here other than the fact Victor could go through the status quo here, but this feels like the weakest option to me. Now, there is a secret third option, or I guess it's option 2.5, and that is Whiff retires from active service from the railway and goes into Heritage Railway, for example, and goes with Neoclav and Matthew. The third episode seems to show Daisy in a predicament. Perhaps she didn't learn a lesson from last time and pushed herself again too far this time. From the shot we were given, I can assume that it could be her trying to climb up the hill or be a banker of some sort, and I'm more leaning towards the first option rather than the second one, because it looks like the track is going uphill, though it could be the camera angle, and as well as the fact that she's on Thomas's branch line, which wouldn't need a banker. The fourth episode is the most mysterious, yet most impactful, as a tragedy unfolds and carries over into episode 5, where we see everyone grieving, especially Samantha and Lady, or Kate. This will be important. Now, I would put forward for some options, but I think I have full confidence that I know what the tragedy is. During the shot that belongs to the 5th episode, remember when I said Samantha and Kate? I think that these two are the key to understanding what that tragedy is. Now, what do these two engines have in common? They were lovers with two other engines. One with Thomas, Kate being with Thomas, and Thomas is now dead, or seemingly dead, but we'll get back to that later. But Samantha is with Reginald, who is very much alive, unless Reginald is the engine that is involved in this tragedy and dies. Remember, he is an LMS engine, and as I stated before in previous theories, LMS engines are more likely to die than their LNER counterparts, or former LNER counterparts. So I think that Reginald is going to die, as he's following up with the LMS pattern. And as well as the fact that I don't see him anywhere in the Season 7 trailer from what I've seen. So I think that Reginald is going to die in this season. But based on the wording that Victor said in the trailer, or at least a little bit that I could hear, it seems that there will be multiple important people that are involved in this tragedy, and that involves how the tragedy unfolds. Now, this is pure speculation, but based off of the implications, I believe that the Fat Controller will die in this accident, either based off of him being on the train Reginald is pulling, derailing, or having something happen, or Topham being in a car and perhaps the gate crossing glitches out or something happens and Reginald slams into the car and derails somewhere. I don't know to be certain, but I could give that as a possible scenario. Now, there could be one more person that dies here, and I'm not too sure if this is even an option, but I do believe that Sir Handel or something like that will die perhaps also. Maybe due to him being with the Fat Controller on the train or in the car maybe talking, because these two love to chatter, especially in Season 4. So that could be the case here. Now, we get into the 6th episode, which is called, I don't even know if I can say the word quite frankly, but basically it deals with this group of people, the Romani, or I think the Romani people, basically being accused of several crimes on the Scarlowi Railway. I think that that's a pretty solid episode idea that will probably be gone through within the episode itself. But these people will be falsely blamed for something that another group of people are doing, which will be the focus on episode 7. However, I want to say something about these 2 episodes. I believe that there is a supernatural element that is happening here. Based on what we see at the end of the trailer, with the dog basically being bent like a ruler, a 90-degree ruler, and a spoon there, I looked up on the SCP wiki to see what this could, because I know Victor loves the SCP series. So I looked into the spoon, and apparently it is based off of SCP-463, also known as a spoon that bends people 90 degrees. That I skimmed over the article, and that's basically what all of this is, seemingly. So it could be that they're finding bodies on the Scarlowi Railway, or it could be that they're finding just pieces and stuff that is bent 90 degrees in a certain weird way, and they were at first blaming the Romani people, and then eventually they come to figure out that, hey, there's this person who's probably using the spoon to his own advantage. It's not that out there, especially since the fact that Camp Coldy is a thing, and we know that they love to house SCPs there too, if you go by the logic of the SCPs of Sodor series, so that's that. Now, we have the final 3 episodes of Season 7. So let's start with the banker, and how he plays a role in this whole steam ban issue. Basically, the banker has seemingly been behind all of these events, or at least has some correlation with him arriving on the railway, and then suddenly all these bad events are happening. So that could be a thing that the engine suspect him of, being behind all these events. But in reality, these are rather just coincidences, and the reason why he's so mysterious, or perhaps maybe his paperwork is so non-existent or, confusing, is because he's running away from the steam ban. Basically, I think this is where they're gonna start, killing off non-faceless steam engines on the mainland, and perhaps this is why this specific banker, or the specific engine rather, that we have seen before suddenly runs away to the island of Sodor. I think that this is going to kick off the whole, steam base engines getting killed thing that we saw in the Railway series and in the Model series. I think Victor's going to go this far this time, with just go full forward and full throttle with it around this episode. And in episode 9, it's going to deal with Peckett basically predicting the future. I think throughout all the episodes here, we're going to have a little scene with Peckett basically predicting stuff for the next episode, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, go on and on and on. You get the point by now. But I believe that this will deal with Peckett basically foreseeing the future. I don't know exactly what the outcome of this episode is going to be. It could be perhaps that there's one more. It could be that Peckett foresees that the steam engines are going to come from the mainland into Sodor, and perhaps that leads into episode 10, which is France's redemption. Now, this is the most interesting episode because we don't know exactly what Francis is redeemed of exactly. We don't know what's the redemption act that he does. So I think that there are 2 possible options here. One is more crazier than the other because the other one involves Thomas, and you know how everyone likes to get up on that. So I'm going to leave that option for last, and I'm going to talk about the most likely option in my opinion, which is him saving a fellow steam engine from the scrapper's torch. I think that Francis will save this banker from the scrapper's torch and bring him back to Sodor in some sort of way. I think this is the most likely option. When I was writing the script, I didn't think so, but upon further thoughts and analysis, I think that is likely. There is also another option in which he is the engine that saves Bear and the other engine, the other diesel engines, trains as well. He could be the Henry in the super rescue, which is an interesting idea because, again, we see Bear at the end of the trailer. Spoilers, by the way, but he is seen at the end of the trailer, Bear. And we do see that Diesel. I forgot his name again. D261 something. Spaghetti. I don't know. So it could be that Francis sees the broken down train and helps out the Diesels. Perhaps this would be a very interesting take on Super Rescue, but I don't know if that's likely, and I have this as the least option that could happen. Well, second to least. The option that I think is the most unlikeliest but the most brain melting is the fact that Thomas the Tank Engine is still somehow alive and Francis sees him on a flatbed in some middle of nowhere place in England or somewhere in the United Kingdom. I don't know where exactly, but perhaps Francis sees that one of his eyes is open and he's being hauled by a faceless Diesel going to Barry Island. And perhaps Francis says, hey, this and Thomas is still alive, and perhaps this is all, I don't know, maybe coincidental, or maybe Francis just finds him like that. I don't know, personally. So perhaps that could be Francis' redemption arc. I don't know. It would line up really well, though, because Francis is the one that brought Thomas to Barry Island, or transferred him over to another train that took him to Barry Island, or, that sort of stuff. So I think him sort of finding Thomas and, returning him back to Sodor, alive and intact, or at least something like that, is a very interesting idea. With that being said, I have no idea what's going to happen. Sorry if this analysis is sort of all over the place, but I'm just sort of recording what I have written down right now, and I sort of went off script a couple times. But regardless, all of the stuff I said right now is not concrete and is subject to change. So throughout the following weeks, probably until the end of the season is over, I will be theorizing every week. I will basically be theorizing every episode and it probably adds on to the story or something like that. This season, in my opinion, feels like season 5, but done very differently, if you get my drift. So, regardless of all that, I will go more in depth with my analysis through the following weeks and update my theories on this season as it goes along. So strap in, like, subscribe, and hype my videos because we're locking in when it comes to this analysis of the season. So, as always, thank you for watching.